Welcome to the Sojourn Wealth Management Podcast. My name is Jeff Bronner, and I'm joined by Andrew Kraft. Today, we're going to be talking through another episode in our series, The Investment Basics, and today's topic is fees. Andrew, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm enjoying this spring weather. Had some rain here and there, but man, it's so nice to be out this time of year.
You know what they say, March rain brings April flowers.
Is that what they say? I've heard it said differently.
So on to the topic at hand. We're going to be talking about fees today, and obviously this is an interesting topic, I think, for our listeners because I think more and more people are fee conscious, and want to understand what they're paying, rightly so. And we want to operate with absolute clarity. So we wanted to take some time in the podcast to actually talk through this topic and just provide some insight and some information for folks to think about and to consider when they engage in a financial advising relationship with an advisor. So
it's so important because it does ultimately cut into someone's budget or returns or whatever. And so It's important to know what those charges and costs, et cetera, are.
Right. So some of the things that we're going to look at in this episode is why fees matter and the difference between what we would consider visible costs. When we talk about fees, you can see line item fee, you pay this, versus a hidden cost, what that might be. And then ultimately, the way we want to frame it is, what are you really paying and what are you getting in return? One of the things that we try to emphasize when we're talking to clients about fees and costs is we use the phrase total cost. So that we can capture everything that somebody is paying in one way or another, so that a client is never blindsided or doesn't understand how something works. We want to talk through that with folks. Andrew, do you mind unpacking some of the, nuances of that total cost structure?
Yeah, it's important because our profession is so highly regulated that someone could say, oh, your fee is, or the charge is, but they might leave out a different part that the client doesn't really think about. And so that's why it's important to really know, okay, what is the total cost to me? And some of those, like you said, are unseen. And so just for example, one cost to a client could be limited accessibility. If you are only able to access 10%, for example, of your account balance each year, every 12 months or so, then that is an opportunity cost. And I think the easiest kind of analogy would be just like a CD at a bank. You get a 3-month, 9-month, whatever, 1-year CD. If you get your money out beforehand, the bank's going to get you with a penalty until it matures. So that's one example, is just that limited accessibility or opportunity cost. And another kind of hidden cost, I guess, is just limited upside. So if you have a strategy that protects you on the downside, so if the market is going down, but your account is protected and won't lose any money, for example, you often give up a great bit of the upside. So there's just a cost of that kind of limited growth. So again, you might not see, like you said, a line item on your statement of a fee or a charge coming out. It might be offered to you as, hey, there's absolutely no cost, and that might be true in the dollars and cents kind of term, but there's probably a cost that's you're not seeing. It's just important to know.
Right. And some of those solutions that we talk clients through are typically feed into one of the ways in which ultimately an advisor gets paid, which is through commission structure. So when we talk about fees and overall how advisors get paid, do you mind taking some time to unpack how a commissionable type product will work?
Yeah, that's a good point, because when that does have that type of unseen cost, it generally has to do with some type of guaranteed product. And by necessity, those are offered by insurance companies. And so typically those are a commission to the advisor. And so it's not good or bad. Oftentimes it's just a transactional type relationship, but it's born out of an immediate need. So for example, a young father with a stay-at-home spouse, for example, needs some life insurance coverage. And so that's just a immediate need. It's kind of urgent. Let's get this thing taken care of. And that's going to be a commissionable type situation where the life insurance company pays a commission to the advisor or the agent who helped that person. And so that's just one example. Another one might be an annuity that provides a personalized pension. Again, you might have that limited accessibility, but it might provide a need that was born out of some planning. But someone's retiring, they need some income, and so they put some money into an annuity. The advisor gets a commission. That's just kind of one way advisor is paid with the insurance side. But it can also be with investments too. Just a mutual fund might have a sales charge. So money goes into the account. Part of that cost goes to the advisor, and then the mutual fund will grow, and there's no cost after that except the underlying, like you mentioned, invisible expenses. Or if it's a different type of mutual fund, what they call a B share, there could be potentially a sales charge or a commission on the end when they take money out. It's usually one or the other in terms of what the commission is the client sees.
Right. And you mentioned, again, those internal expenses. That's something we talk through anytime we're working with a client about how those internal operating expenses, again, having transparency with those. There are other models for how advisory firms operate in regard to revenue generation. Do you mind talking through some of those other models outside of just straight commissionable products?
Yeah, I think in the investment world, you're never going to get away from those expenses, right? So they're kind of always baked in, and so you need to just know what they are. But one way that advisory firms operate is what's called fee only, and so they will not engage in a commissionable transaction. So if there's that type of a need that might be filled by a certain strategy, they'll kind of direct you somewhere else to take care of that, because they only accept a fee, which can be either a charge on the assets that they're managing, so that they are investing in the account. If the accounts do well, then the advisor makes more money. Of course, the client's pleased. Account goes down, the advisor makes less money, but the client's not pleased as much. And so that kind of aligns the interest in the sense of like, we want to make your account grow. But there's also some conflict of interest there. Oftentimes those are positioned as an option that has no conflict of interest. But just as a quick example, if someone has some credit card debt at a high interest rate, it's in their best interest to pay that off usually. And so if someone has an account that they're managing, they might say, no, just keep paying on that and you'll get it paid off in a year or two, because that would lower their fee intake. And so it's just kind of a little bit inaccurate to say, hey, we don't do commissions, therefore we don't have conflict of interest. But I think it's important to just know that on top of that fee, there are the underlying expenses. And so just the client needs to think, what is the total cost that we have? Because there's management expenses, custodial fees, there's platform fees, all sorts of things that go into that. That's just one kind of way that fee only works. Another one might be just a flat fee for a plan.
Yeah.
Someone says, hey, I don't need investments. Got all my insurance needs covered. Risk management's good. I just want independent kind of second look at my idea of retirement. So do a plan, pays the advisor $500 or whatever, and gets a nice balanced plan. Which again is good in the sense that the advisor is giving them purely objective advice. But if that plan is not implemented, then the client's not, in my opinion, is not well served. The advisor gets paid, but the client just has a nice balanced plan, and that I've seen more than once just end up on the bookshelf. And another one is just an hourly fee, kind of like an attorney.
Yeah, retainer type.
Yeah. Well, I think, I'm not sure what the actually legal definition is. I think a retainer is more like a monthly subscription, right? Which is another option. So you can just pay, hey, I'm going to sit down with this advisor for an hour, kind of pick their brain about stuff, and then pay them a fee for that time spent. Or I think like what you were referring to, a retainer, which I think is a great structure, where you just pay a monthly fee, which I think a lot of people are familiar with the prevalence of what Prime and Netflix and Hulu and
services, yeah.
Yeah.
We're a subscription society now.
Yeah. And isn't there a subscription commercial that will help you get rid of right, to get rid of other subscriptions? But yes, that's another option where you just have a monthly subscription to have access to consultant whenever you have any kind of financial question, whether it's, buying a car or a house or a new job, looking at the benefits, all that kind of stuff is important.
So, kind of going over the commission, you mentioned kind of a transactional nature to that relationship, and you mentioned with fee only, this can be a restrictive model because there might be solutions. Is there any way to get around those two models?
Yeah, so I think a hybrid approach we have found has served our clients really well in the sense that we offer a lot of different ways. We try and meet the clients, where they are, but then we can also not just find out, hey, you have a need, but we can help you fill that need. We can help provide a strategy to meet that. Hey, here's a solution, and as independent advisors, we're not bound to just one company. We can go to the market and try and find out what's the best solution
Hmm.
for you. So that hybrid approach combines this kind of, it's called fee based, is what the profession calls it, but it combines an asset based kind of management fee with commissionable type structures, and our clients know
Hmm.
what's going on when we implement a strategy, but that often is. Sometimes we first meet clients because there's this urgent need. There's
Right.
some kind of uh, situation, something happens, an event. I'm going to retire, or I just had a baby, or whatever. But then, we really like to walk through life with our
Yeah.
clients, and so it becomes more of a relationship. And then, people change, their goals change, life happens, whether it's birth, death, marriage, divorce, sickness, whatever. And so, we create a plan that's not, you know, carved in stone. It's malleable, and we can adjust it and help make sure that whatever strategies we implement have some flexibility, so that down the road we can make changes based on those conversations.
Yeah, I think the flexibility that you mentioned, Andrew, is what we value so much about that fee-based model. Regardless of what circumstances a client might face, whatever life changes happened, that model is able to be flexible with that and adapt to the client's needs. Well, we thank you so much, listeners, for tuning in to this episode and listening to our overview on fee structures and why we think it's important ultimately to consider total costs and how that impacts you when you're making a financial plan and implementing that financial plan. If you found this valuable and you want to do a fee analysis or ask any questions you might have, we'd be glad to sit down with you and talk through that. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sojourn Wealth Management Podcast. This is a friendly reminder that all content in this podcast is intended for educational purposes alone. Nothing in this episode should be treated as tax, legal, or investment advice. We encourage you to consult your financial professional for any of those needs. Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services LLC, Kestra IS, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services LLC, Kestra AS, an affiliate of Kestra IS. Kestra IS or Kestra AS are not affiliated with Sojourn Wealth Management.